Jews.
Well, I heard it and I'm like, okay.
I said Juice totally did that shit.
In the files of Suns and Shadows cast, the Naked Gun trilogy, we are the only podcast that delves into the lost, forgotten, and canceled television series. Not this time. Let's remember, relive, and revisit the Naked Gun, the Armored Chinks edition. My name is Detective Jeff.
All right, yeah, because it took me so long to think of it. And I am the savage henchman, Kevin Savage.
And I am Will, your mad scientist. And I'll just cackle here, right?
I got nothing. I don't cackle. I do little giggles.
Or you hack up a lung.
That's creepy. That sounds like a little scary kid. That'd freak me out.
That's pretty good.
One does it, one can.
We'll save that for a scary episode.
No.
Lieutenant Frank Drebin, he's back and in a big way. From the files of the police squad, the Naked Gun brought about the big screen resurgence that continued the series through 3 full-length feature films with surface-deep mysteries, crazy characters galore, hijinks en masse, visual gags, and plenty more. Join Frank Drebin as he solves the biggest cases of his career and gets the same girl every time. Watch out, Dirty Harry. We've got the real loose cannon on the screen here. We're into the Naked Gun movies. Kevin and Will, we're going to start with you, Kevin. What are your memories of the Naked Gun movies? And how'd you first watch these? Or did you go to the theater?
I did. I remember 1, being excited from seeing the previews. And then 2, yeah, my dad definitely took us to go see all 3 of them in the theater.
Wow.
So, although the only preview that I really remember, like vividly remember, is the intro to part 2, or the preview to part 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's where it shows the lady dramatically running down the hill, and they played it out like it was going to be some summer drama type movie, and then it shows Frank open the door and knock her off the hill, or knock her off the cliff.
And Will, did you ever see this one in the theaters, or how did you see this?
Yeah, I was about 7. I didn't realize I was that young until I saw what year the Naked Gun, the first one, came out, was 88. But yeah, my parents took me to see all 3. They really both enjoyed that kind of airplane humor. It's the same guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they loved Airplane, and especially my dad. He really loved Police Squad to begin with. And yeah, I think these movies, looking back, kind of shaped some of my current tastes and humor.
Okay.
Definitely.
That makes sense. I mean, we did cover, like, say, like The Office, diametrically different shows, but the same kind of like serious humor that's surrounded by a bunch of reality or crazy situations that come from that.
Yeah.
God, for me, I actually didn't see any of these in the movie theater. I saw these all thanks to the video store that my mom would let me go to, and I just be able to grab like whatever tapes I could. So I never saw these really on TV till long after the fact. So it was VHS for me and our VCR that I got to see these every time. And throughout the years I see them on TV. I got like the Blu-ray set for this now, for rewatching for this, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. But yeah, although when I was watching these back with my wife, I feel like I got parts of 1 and parts of part 2 like completely switched around. And when we were watching the first movie, I'm like, I thought the baseball sequence was in the second movie. Boy, was I fucking wrong.
That's relatable. I did the same thing. I always think of Robert Goulet being the bad guy,
Right.
instead of Ricardo Montalban, where it's like, oh shit, that's right, he was the bad guy in the first one. But Robert Goulet is just the smooth guy she always just remembered. I don't know why.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out, like, I didn't remember Ricardo Montalban being the villain in the first one, like, at all. I thought it was like the same villain through the first 2 movies. So when I'm seeing him, I'm like, boy, I really don't know these movies that well, and I feel like I've seen them plenty of times. So it's not a knock on him for not being memorable. I think it's just my memory is just the melding of the two movies. And the third one, I think I've only seen it once in my life before. And so I remember like bits and pieces, but I really remembered basically nothing of it. So when I watched it this last time, I wrote down like a ton of notes.
Yeah, I want to say the only thing I remember from the third movie is one, I think they played it on HBO for a while, like a lot.
Oh,
And two, Anna, Anna Nicole Smith's big floppy donkey dick's coming out. That was the only thing that I truly remembered from that movie. So getting to watch the third one again from, gosh, it's been maybe 10, 15 years was really kind of refreshing and nice because it was funnier than I remember it being.
So what did you call Anna Nicole Smith's tits?
No, her big floppy donkey dick.
yeah. Or you know the silhouette scene in the third one?
No, I missed that completely.
Oh, they're
yeah.
at the Oscars. Oh my God. She hauls him into the other room and she's confessing her love. I love you. I want to go straight. I want to be clean, but I need you to be with me right now. And she strips, pushes him down. And then as she strips off, the floppy dong comes flopping out. And he just gets up, hurls, runs out, and pukes in the tuba.
Yeah, in the middle of the Oscars, he like slides like for home plate and puts his head in a tuba and pukes in the orchestra.
And that's why he'll never be invited to the Oscars again.
That part, just that part is why. That's the only part. That's why he won't be invited back.
Well, that was the gag from the executive producer behind the scenes because they thought it was the
Who was the director?
Leslie Nielsen was Phil Donahue. They're like, we're never inviting Phil back to this.
Okay, because I
Boy,
thought
they
I
should
remembered...
learn their lesson so well for like future Oscars on when people act up to never invite them back again.
See,
Which
I
is
thought...
why we used the picture of Will Smith slapping the shit out of Chris Rock for our promotional. We just threw the fucking logo on the Naked Gun 33 in the third because we're like, well, fuck, that should have happened in the movie. It could have been a deleted scene.
That would have been right in line with everything else going on.
Yeah,
it would fit that kind of an atmosphere. Somebody slapping another person on an awards show
randomly.
Well, at least we haven't seen a fight over the nomination envelope to see who really won. At next year's WrestleMania, you're going to get the best director versus the best starring actor and actress in a three-way ladder match.
I'd be down.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Rich white people
Yeah.
duking it out like that. 2 men, 1 stick. Big ass circle. I like it.
Yep. Hey,
Anyway.
if Vince ain't too busy with what he's currently dealing with, hey, book it, dude.
Yeah, but it's no, three. I think I'm glad we got to watch it again. Going back to what we were saying, because it didn't get that justice. I think the first 2 movies were so good. The second movie was so good,
yes,
that it overshadowed the third in a way.
Yeah, it's a hard act to follow.
The second one really was.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of amazing. The second one pulled it off even better than the first one did, because that's a rare feat, especially as it came from a TV show.
Correct. And that's worth noting, both of those points, because it's not often in general, and everybody knows this, that a sequel can be as good, if not better, than the original film. There's very few flicks, Terminator, Godfather, things like that, the stereotypical ones. Naked Gun 2.5, I think, deserves to be in that list. Just because it's a comedy doesn't mean anything. It is a damn good sequel. They don't rely on callback jokes like you'd see in an Austin Powers flick. There's no 15-20 minutes of the same repeated joke from the last 2 films. Much like with Police Squad, every joke in the Naked Gun trilogy is used only once.
right.
And that worked.
And the kind of jokes that they do makes it even more remarkable, because they aren't going for highbrow humor. There's some highbrow, but it's lowbrow kind of humor. But a lot of their jokes, like the visual gags, like sneezing increases women's breasts.
Yeah, or the tow truck that has the giant toe on it.
Right.
Yeah.
just that really simple stuff that's so brilliant. And comedy, slapstick specifically, gets overlooked and snubbed just as much, if not more, than the MCU at this point.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, why can't The Naked Gun be one of the best sequels of all time? Just because it's slapstick comedy. It was made by the creators of slapstick, more or less, at least the new fathers of it. So, I think it deserves to be up there. The third movie, however, again, is still just as good as the others, but got overshadowed by the second, which is unfair because the third movie is the most like an episode of Police Squad.
I totally agree with that, because the other ones have more of a international flair to them. Like they're going grander, bigger, more grandiose. The third one feels a little more central to a city or a state area. Even with the Thelma and Louise things that they had going on. Like that was curious where they actually went with all of that, but they ended up circling right back to meeting up at the house at the end. But to your point, like you're talking about the way sequels were, like at that time, a lot of the trilogies were like that, where the first one was really good, the second one would be amazing, and then the third one would ultimately be disappointing. I think the perfect example of that is probably Beverly Hills Cop. As a kind of a comparison, because that was less slapstick, but like in the same kind of vein. First one's really good. The second one is considered the best. The third one is, whoa, we went PG here. What's going on? I'm not saying that happened with this franchise. How I looked at it as first one was freaking awesome. The second one was just as good, if not better. The third one did feel a little bit of a step down. I don't know if it was like the style they were going with like, oh, I'm getting too old for this, where we kind of been trained by Lethal Weapon to everybody's feeling old, too old for this shit, and they're already looking to stop doing this. So it kind of felt like we were hitting a little bit of a tired trope at that time, because we had already had 3 Lethal Weapons where Danny Glover's like, I'm getting too old for this shit. I'm getting too old for this shit. And then there's probably some other movies out there that were doing the same thing. And so Frank's going through, I'm getting too old for this shit. But at least he comes through and he snaps out of it and becomes the Frank Drebin from the first movie. So it felt like there was more of a story arc for him rather than just going through a plot. So that's why I kind of think the third one is a bit underappreciated, actually.
I'd forgotten how good the third one was, honestly. When we were talking about doing the trilogy, I was like, and I think we might have actually been discussing this briefly, was that the first two was that we were looking forward to the first two, and the third one was just kind of like a downfall, just kind of like like you said, a big step down. But watching them through again with totally different age and totally different eyes, I'd say the third one has a good standing.
I think so. And I think part of the reason because of that is, like I said, the third one felt the most like an episode of Police Squad, because the villain was the most like a villain from Police Squad. And that, of course, is the dear actor, Fred Ward, God rest his soul.
And that was, so good to see him in this.
Was fucking amazing as, what was his name? I'm gonna have to look it up now. Rocco.
Yeah. I was gonna say Rocco. Rocco Dillon.
Yes. And all I could think was his fucking Frank's last name, the McGurk, Slasher McGurk.
Oh yeah, Slasher McGurk. That was great.
And I'm sorry, the actress that plays his mom.
I couldn't place her, but I know I've seen her before.
She plays the Penguin in the Blues Brothers. The nun. She is the most Ma Beagle that's not Ma Beagle I have ever seen in my entire life.
I was thinking the same thing, dude.
Was she in Throw Mama from the Train?
No, that's a completely different actress. Anne Ramsey.
I thought
That's
she was
Anne
the
Ramsey.
mom from Goonies, of the villains.
Yeah.
But
No, yeah, that's both Anne Ramsey.
yeah.
Wow.
For
See,
she
now I'm
was
gonna have
probably
to
a
look
stunt
this up.
double and actually had a better acting career. I don't know.
I'm looking this up. I'm not going to let it go. It's going to bother me all night.
Well, just while you're doing that, like Fred Ward being in this, I actually looked it up. He shot this movie like almost a year before he did Tremors 2.
Did he really?
Because Tremors 2 was shot in 94 over 27 days. So he did this movie, and within, I don't know if it was 12 months or whatever it was, but from 93 to 94, he shot this and then he shot that one.
Wow. Two pretty great movies.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, his
Not
hair
too-
looked very similar. So I'm like,
Oh,
is that
yeah.
around the time that he did Tremors 2? I looked it up and it was literally the year before. Now, Tremors 2, I don't think actually got released until like 95, 96, I think, because that was more direct to video. But that's at least what I was reading for research that I'm like, damn, dude. He had a banger in this one.
And for all the movie nerds at home listening, yelling at me, the Penguin is played by Kathleen Freeman. So Kathleen Freeman is the actress that should play Ma Beagle in the live action version of DuckTales.
There you go.
Should she still be alive? And she also plays, God bless her, Microwave Marge in Gremlins 2.
Okay, that's
Oh.
When she's talking about cooking with Sherry.
Yes.
Some people like to use a little. I use a lot.
Oh, now I want to watch those. The movies my wife will refuse to watch because she does not like Gremlins.
Oh, dude.
What?
The Naked Gun movies are the ones that Brandy refused to watch with. Well, Brandy hasn't watched any of the shows with me so far, but
yeah,
like slapstick is most definitely not her thing. So when you said that Amy watched it with you, I was kind of like, what's that like?
you're right. Well, that's a rare occasion, but I said we were watching like the Naked Gun movies, and she's like, "Oh, can I watch this with you?" I'm like, "Yeah, we did the TV show." She said, "I didn't know there was a TV show," and so we're going to be watching that again.
Nice.
Sometime soon, probably this weekend, because she's very interested. Because after watching the first two movies, she didn't watch the third one with me because I told her, if you like the movies, you're going to love this show because it's actually a little less slapsticky, and she is totally game for that. So definitely go back and check out Police Squad. Also check out our previous episode on the TV show.
So in terms of directorial, producer, all the above the actor kind of people, executives, business, whatever, what's the connection between the Police Squad showrunners and the Naked Gun showrunners?
They're
Same.
the same people.
Oh,
And it's again the same people that did Airplane and Kentucky Fried Movie. And Airplane 2? Or was that just the Zuckers?
Ooh, that's the space one, right?
Yes.
I think that was the Zuckers, but I don't quote me on that.
Yeah, because the space station was Alpha Beta, and the joke about that at the time was that was a grocery store chain.
Right.
That's right.
Now I want to watch those.
I'm old and remember shit. Yeah.
hey, speaking of old and remembering shit, this is a horrible way to address this.
As
Just
I
do
take
it,
another
dude.
toke.
Yeah, no. So I was told by Liz, or she mentioned it, that there's a joke about Spartacus in one part.
Oh yeah.
And that it's a joke about some person on the movie scene who was not quite the same sexual identity as people might have assumed, and that
that's
was
what
part
the
of the
joke was
joke.
doing? Oh.
Yeah, and that was part of the joke in the semen lab.
It's actually a callback to Airplane.
Okay.
Peter Graves is the captain in Airplane, and this little boy really wants to see the cockpit, and the stewardess keeps telling him no, and Peter Graves is like, no, come on up here, and he starts asking him questions like, you ever been in a Turkish prison or a Turkish bathhouse? And it's like starts asking all these questions that are vaguely homosexual. So after in this, while Frank's done jerking off and she'd bringing him that porno movie, he's like, do you have Spartacus? because that's supposed to be your stereotypical gladiator movie type joke.
Okay.
And half of the guys were like naked, I think, something like that.
I thought that was kind of random.
No, yeah, no, it was a callback to Peter Graves.
Okay.
Yeah. Nerd alert. Oh, it's also worth mentioning, of course, that Peter Graves graduated from the University of Minnesota.
Is there by chance a movie script somewhere that might be spec'd out soon about that? Or might be optioned? I've heard that there's a movie script in the works about Peter Graves' time at the University of Minnesota.
I believe there is, written by a certain Crow T robot.
I want to choose who lives and dies, maybe that guy.
I want to say he's the same author as Earth versus Soup.
Oh,
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
That was a great novella.
I'd say so. Yes, it was a shame that it didn't get picked up.
Yeah, unfortunately, that happens to some projects.
You know what? Some people see a red light. I see a red light waiting to turn green, and I think Crow probably sees it that way too. And now that there's 3 of them, it's just a collaborative writing process. That strayed way far away, and everyone at home's like, the fuck are they talking about?
Jeff steered back on track.
It's just Pot Talk Monday, folks. Don't worry.
It's Mystery Science Theater, kids. We're sorry. Anyway, so yeah, the joke was a callback to Peter Graves' gay jokes with the little boy in the cockpit in Airplane.
So it's nothing like a blind man at an orgy where you just have to feel things out.
Yeah. Or like a little person at the urinal, I'm gonna have to be on my toes.
I love the jokes of this one. I don't know, like anybody just casually watching this would be like, hey, wait, what did they just say? Rewind that. And they'd probably be doing like that the whole movie, because there was a lot of those running through. Like, I don't know, part of the whole sperm bank sequence was pretty hilarious from the word go. He goes in with an arm sling. He's like, oh, I'm going into a doctor's clinic and it's a sperm bank, and he's having to go into the jerk off rooms. But like when he first got there and he's telling her like, yeah, I was in the backyard with my uncle. I think I just threw it around too much. And then when he realized, oh yeah, this is a sperm bank, she's like, maybe you shouldn't have gone out into the backyard so much.
That was a great scene. It's just really lowbrow as can be, but it's still hilarious. It's a really great example of what their slapstick can do. It takes something as banal as like that whole scene, and then it makes it actually pretty damn hilarious.
You know what it is when you get right down to it, is it's improv at its finest.
Yeah.
Like Frank is a perfect improvist. What's the first rule in improv? Don't say no. So in situations like this, like Frank will never back down from his story, because his stories never work out when he goes undercover.
Right.
So except for the one time where he's Tony DeWonderful. It's like he never tries to re-explain. He just doubles down on the fucking story or just accepts it. Like, yeah, that's what happened. Mm-hmm.
I wish we would have gotten more out of the 70s flashback scene, because that could have been even funnier if they had done like an extended sequence just to see how he was doing undercover then, because that was the flashback. Oh, I remember her, and he had the longer hair, and then OJ had the fro going on, and just everything that was going on. I'm like, a little more of that, even just for like 2 more minutes, just to actually see what they were actually doing back then, would have been pretty hilarious.
I think so. I mean, the jokes that they put in there were pretty funny. Stereotypes, not racial or anything like that, just 70s stereotypes, like OJ's fucking afro.
Dude, that was rocking.
He had to fucking turn sideways to get through the fucking door. Fucking Ed's bell bottoms and shit like that.
Yeah. I'm like, that is like ripe for just you could have lingered on that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, sure, it was a little racially stereotyped, but
yeah,
just for Nordberg.
Well, I mean, these movies are from a totally different period where
Yes.
they could have gotten way worse and gotten away with it completely.
Yes, these movies were fairly civil for the time.
For back then, yeah. If these came out now, woo.
No. They'd probably get hit with a whole bunch of red flags these days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within 5 seconds of the opening credits happening.
Probably just the trailer.
Yeah, it'd be a red band trailer.
Oh, I'd watch that trailer. Anyway.
So out of these movies, what do you guys think of like anything else that you've enjoyed? Like the opening credit montage with the police light from the TV show or
Yeah.
or anything like that?
It's hard to pick just because it's like we were talking about, they're just kind of like slapstick jokes. And I'm really having a hard time remembering any of them specifically, but I remember when I was watching the first one yesterday that a lot of the jokes were like, oh yeah, that thing. And like I was almost like completing the joke ahead of time because it was only when I saw it, it triggered the memory. But it's great memories. And I mean, as soon as I remembered, it was like, oh yeah, this is going to be hilarious or whatever.
There were a few that stuck out for me as far as the intro, because I've always loved the intro to like Police Squad and The Naked Gun. Ira Newman's score for it is one of my favorite scores. But them going through the women's locker room was pretty fantastic.
Yep.
The pinball machine was pretty fantastic.
That was one of my favorites.
The roller coaster, I think was Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk's roller coaster,
Okay.
which Dirty Harry shot somebody off of, which was really cool. But my favorite was the second one, where it ends with them pulling over Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Yep.
And she comes out and she slaps the fucking light and it turns off. She goes, every fucking time I go shopping. Which, for those people at home listening, just a year or so before that, 2 years before, Zsa Zsa Gabor got pulled over by a police officer for erratic driving. And she got pissed off and slapped the cop in the face. And she got brought in for assaulting an officer. So they thought it would just be a funny joke to have her do that. But no, and the funny thing is I found out as I was writing notes for it or making tweets for it earlier this week is the 33rd anniversary of that actual arrest.
Oh, wow.
Like, no shit. That's serendipity.
Yeah.
But it's not just serendipity. I mean, that's why we planned this recording session, is because.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just like we'll plan like the anniversary of Roseanne Barr narfing on the American National Anthem.
So
no, wait.
worse?
The first movie actually did that for us, even though that was not around the same time. But I thought that was pretty hilarious. Like, oh God, what was his name? Enrico Palazzo?
Oh, God.
It's Enrico Palazzo. And he was singing the national anthem. I'm like, oh, dude. I don't know. When that scene came up, I'm like, this reminds me of Roseanne Barr. Amy was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I had to explain to her, like, I don't know if it was like around this time, before this time, or after this time, but Roseanne Barr singing the national anthem at a baseball game, very horribly, grabbed her crotch, spit on the ground afterwards, and it was a big thing. I don't know why, but this just reminded me of that. And so I had to tell her about it too. And she's like, it'd be funny if that was actually before this. And I'm like, I think it was after.
Probably.
But I don't know. I thought it was freaking hilarious. And then I loved the ending of the first movie. It was pretty good. But as far as like the opening credits, all the ones that you said, Kevin, are pretty good. The one that I really kind of like popped the most at was the Star Wars one.
Yes.
And the third one where they made the run on the Death Star.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, I was not expecting that, because this is like, how did they get the rights? Did Lucas like enjoy like Leslie Nielsen so much, or the Zuckers enough to be like, okay, guys, you can borrow about 15 seconds, but no more.
I can believe it. That was a totally different Lucas back then.
Yeah. And it was Paramount, not Fox. So it was something that they actually probably had to finagle.
Well, Paramount handled Indiana Jones. So maybe there was an in with that.
Oh, that's right. And this was around the time that, or just after Last Crusade came out.
Okay. That would make sense.
But no, the Enrico Palazzo joke, like that whole ending scene at the baseball game is just priceless. But the best, my moment out of that is where Ed's telling the mayor, "That's not the umpire, Your Honor." And Frank takes off the umpire mask, and there's Mark Halton in the fucking crowd from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Francis from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Hey, it's Enrico Palazzo.
Yeah.
He saved the queen.
Yeah. The whole fucking stadium goes nuts and shit.
Yeah, that was great.
That was a great part.
Well, I like the fact they had actual baseball umpires in this.
Did they?
While they were doing their little arguing fest over, well, you're out of here. You can't throw an umpire out of here. And I'm just like, laughing my head off.
No, that whole thing was fantastic. And I was trying to explain it to my wife. Like, again, he didn't mean to get caught
Right.
or have his cover be blown, but it did. But he just doubled down on it.
Yep.
Once Frank figures out that people, or he's getting a reaction for his calls, whether it be strike, ball, foul, or out.
Yep.
Like he gets so narcissistic into it, and he starts doing like football dances while he's making the strike calls.
Yep.
And she's like, I don't get it. What are you talking about? I'm like, he's full on Michael Jackson dancing while going, "You're out."
Strike 3.
Yeah, like I'm guessing it's one of those things where it's like you actually have to watch it, but
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen is just fucking awesome in the end of the first one. And again, I don't know anything else about Enrico Palazzo other than he saved the queen, and we should all thank him for that.
Thank you, Enrico.
Should we?
He at least deserves national recognition as being, hey, that's Enrico Palazzo.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't know if it's a good thing that Queen was saved, but he's a good guy. He's a good enough guy.
Yeah,
He's an Italian.
Yeah, right.
What kind of weird treaties does that open up between the guy saving the Queen and his homeland?
I don't know. We might have to ask the Mario brothers.
Oh my god, that movie was dreadful.
Oh my god. No, speaking of Super Mario Brothers, did you hear what I foobarred doing like 2 weeks ago, Will?
No.
So I was on the Mary Jo Peel show as a game show contestant. Most folks listening know that I am the admin for the Mads Are Back Facebook group. So they asked me if I wanted to be a contestant on this game show that Mary Jo and Chris were putting together. And it was basically the $64,000 pyramid, which today you'd probably call it taboo. Most people know it as taboo. You'd have to get somebody to say a word. You have to describe the word without actually saying any of X amount of words.
Right.
And my partner was Rebecca Hansen from Mystery Science Theater. She plays GPC. And Rebecca is sincerely the funniest person that I've ever met. And I've seen Carlin, I've seen Fluffy live, I've seen Cosby. Anyway.
Good thing you just saw.
Yeah, no, this was like in 2007 or 8. So I didn't know. But no, Rebecca is sincerely the funniest person I've ever met. And she was trying to describe Jurassic Park.
Uh-oh.
And she says, okay, you're going to take your dinosaur for a walk. Like she's trying to describe Park. And my mind immediately went to open the door, get on the floor. Everyone walks the dinosaur. I'm like, Super Mario Brothers? And you just hear the buzzer go, meh. I'm like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah, I find that people who go to school at the University of Minnesota have a lot of credibility.
Especially narrating biographies and whatnot.
Absolutely. And starring in movies about giant, caterpillars that were killing everyone?
Locusts,
yes.
Yep.
Go Packers.
Go Packers.
And
Packers.
That is our callback back to Airplane and Peter Graves.
There we go. We circled back to the topic. Ta-da.
Jeff the Italian.
We were in an airplane. It was an airplane. We were just flying around in a loop and yeah.
Yep, we were rounding the bases of the airport because we had a little technical issue, but we're back now.
Absolutely. Better than ever.
Did we end with get left off with the slap? Not to the Will Smith slap, the Zsa Zsa slap. We talked about 2 slaps in one episode. That's awesome.
Yeah,
And
we
by
talked the
way,
Will Smith slap, but we didn't talk the two-handed and then the third hand slap.
oh my God, that made my son almost fucking pee his pants. He was laughing so hard. Like, my son is almost 8, and like he doesn't really get comedies yet. But he watched that and just like could not figure out what the fuck just happened. And his face looked kind of like fucking Leslie Nielsen's face when he got slapped with the third hand.
Like what? What was that?
Hunter's like, Daddy, what happened? But I think that's what Frank wants to know too, sweetheart.
Is that the second movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because he gets pissed off. They start talking about Robert Goulet,
Right.
because Scylla's dating Robert Goulet in the second movie. And he starts to like rub it in that she left him at the altar, more or less.
That's right.
And she goes to slap him and he grabs her hand and goes, well, a certain kitten still knows how to scratch. Oh, shit. He was so good. But speaking of Scylla, what are your guys' thoughts and opinions with Jane's character in the series?
Well, one real quick aside, that's Priscilla Presley, right?
Yes. See,
and she was in Austin Powers, right?
No.
That
I thought she was in one of them. Okay. Anyhow,
God.
I was trying to look into this, but I noticed that the scene in Naked Gun, the first one, where Lieutenant Commander Frank Drebin, or whatever his title is going to the bathroom and happens to have an extended peeing sequence. And it immediately reminded me of another sequence that was not nearly as funny either, from Austin Powers.
That was funny for its time, and I think that worked for Austin Powers more or less, or the amount that it did work for Austin Powers. I think that worked because people didn't remember it from the Naked Gun.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was as funny either. Like Frank singing and scratching his butt and farting was fantastic, because I think that was more relatable. The 3-minute piss that Michael Myers does was funny, but
It got
not
old.
necessarily relatable. Yeah.
What, we're gonna forget about Revenge of the Nerds Part 2?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, wow. Yep, apparently we did.
Was that Booger that did that?
No, it was Ogre.
Ogre, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
They had a full conversation and he's taking a leak and they keep looking back over like, what is wrong with this dude? Because they actually, the way they acted that whole scene out, they sold it perfectly, like legit, like what is going, they didn't sell it like slapstick, they sold it
like he just really was pissing for 3 minutes.
dude, did he drink a keg? Like, what's going on?
Well, yeah, dude. Ogre's like Thor. Like, all he consumes is beer all the time.
Yep.
If they had pony kegs back then, I'm sure he would have had one under his shoulder with the fucking straw in it the whole time.
While still peeing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why lose time? You've got you've got 2 different hands, like one hand holds the pony keg.
Well, that's how you get to the sperm bank with the fucking sling on your arm.
Yeah, right. Oh my arm.
Oh no, that was from playing in the backyard with his uncle.
Yeah. As
Had nothing to do with holding a pony keg.
as one does.
Well, you guys have now brought up Austin Powers. Clearly, there's some inspirations going on here. How do you feel like Naked Gun, Leslie Nielsen, kind of played into that?
What year did Austin Powers come out?
96.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was about an 8-year gap from the original one.
I think they certainly opened the door, because Austin Powers does have a very high amount of slapstick to it, but not as literal as, say, a Zucker film would be.
A lot more zanier, I think.
Yes. Like it was I can't even say more cartoony.
Right.
It was just different. Maybe even more serious would be a better term for it. The Zucker films are more cartoony, I think. They're like live action Looney Tune movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a great way to look at them.
The cameo in Police Squad where the cop is walking around and doesn't realize that the fucking safe is hanging above his head and it gets dropped on him. George something, I can't think of his last name.
Oh, I can't either.
But speaking of those cameos, did you guys count how many cameos from Police Squad returned for the Naked Gun movies?
I did not, but I did notice like most of the cops that came back, like
Yeah,
the scientist.
Ted, yeah, he's
Scientist guy is awesome.
oh god, yes. Now is Ted the only cop that did return other than Frank? Because Nordberg, of course, was replaced with OJ.
After the first one, we never saw Al again. I didn't think.
No, that's true. We didn't, did we?
Yeah, I'm only thinking of that like just now. Like, oh my god, I didn't realize we were missing Al, even just for like a split second.
Huh.
Huh. Although we're talking about like Ted for a minute, my favorite invention was in the third movie, the Denver jockstrap.
Oh god, yes.
It's for carjacking, and oh my god,
It's the boot for your balls.
Oh my god, that was great. And he kept screaming in pain and holding frozen. Like that's exactly how somebody would react, other than dropping to their knees, going, "Oh."
And it looked like the Ed 209's fucking feet or some shit.
It looked like a low, not a low jack. Oh my god, it looked like a boot on a car.
Yeah. It was a boot for your balls.
When she drove off, Liz and I were just in hysterics laughing at that. And the guy's just stuck there with the whole like claw apparatus stuck to him, the big wand sticking off.
Well, I think the guys sold the reactions well too, because they go right back to them that were looking down. They're all three of them are like, oh, that was bad.
Ted's reaction to it, his pride was fantastic. We call it the Denver jockstrap. Like, damn.
He was proud. He had good reason to be.
Oh yeah,
that was pretty good.
That was like Q without fucking any arrogance to it. He was just very, very like legitimately proud of it.
Yes.
So one thing I really liked about Police Squad and with Frank Drebin is that there were a lot of real reactions to what he was doing. Like in some movies, like the guy being a lunatic might just be ignored or written off or whatever, but everyone around him is aware of what he's doing. Like he's not pulling off anything.
I credit that the way that gets pulled off and the way it works 100% to Leslie Nielsen and his background as a serious actor. Now, were all of his movies serious and good? No.
Day of the Animals.
Day of the Animals, but
Twilight Zone.
The Forbidden Planet. Cannot shit on that movie. I'm sorry.
Dude, good movie for him.
Yeah. Couldn't even barely recognize him outside of his fucking nose and his cheekbones.
Right.
But yeah, no, that was a good movie. But The Naked Gun seriously rejuvenated his career, or Police Squad, really, where he became a hot commodity. Once the Zuckers kind of stepped down after Naked Gun 33 and a third, you started seeing other people mimic the Naked Gun movies or the Zucker movies a lot, starting with things like Repossessed.
Scary Movie.
Well, no, not Scary Movie. The first two Scary Movies were spoof homages to a point. But once the Zuckers took over in part 3, then yes, it was very much that same type of comedy as the Naked Gun movies type were.
Oh, I had no idea the Zuckers took over in 3.
Yes,
that makes a lot of sense.
The Wayans brothers got into some shit with what was it, Dimension?
I think so, yeah.
Or Miramax.
I thought that was Dimension. I'll look it up.
Yeah.
It might have been Dimension, yeah, because they were spoofing Scream.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, they just weren't getting paid the money that they were wanting, so they were like, fuck it, we're out. And then they wanted to still make the movie because it was Dimension still felt that there was money there, so they gave it to David Zucker, and I think it was just him. And it did not have the same feel as the first two movies. It very much was a type of Leslie Nielsen or Zucker type film, to the point where Leslie Nielsen was the president in part 3 and 4. It was supposed to be George Bush, and it was really funny. But that's about as far as it went for those movies. Like Leslie Nielsen's lines with jaw roll was funny, and Anthony Anderson and Kevin Hart were funny. That was about it.
And that was Dimension.
How about the terrorists at the beginning, like Gaddafi especially?
Oh yeah. That's right. Will and I were talking about it. Was it last night or the night before?
Yeah, it was
all
last
of the
night.
Terrorists at the beginning of the first Naked Gun movie, where they're having that big conspiring meeting like Batman's Rogues would against the fucking United States.
The Legion of Doom.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was, but with like real life terrorist impersonators.
Well, and Gorbachev when he was a bad communist before he became a good communist.
But yeah, he has that line. He's like, in some of their polls, I'm more popular than their own president. There was like the Ayatollah, fucking Muammar Gaddafi, and a couple other guys, a African warlord. I cannot remember his name, but he was in there too. But I don't know. Will and I were talking about it. I don't know that any of those people at that table, the actual people, are still alive. Like Gorbachev died, was it of cancer years ago? The Ayatollah passed away of his own accord, apparently. And Muammar Gaddafi was finally caught, because like they seriously fucked Gaddafi up when they finally fucking caught him. And Will's like, no, fuck. I'm like, I tell you, it's just like watching Faces of Death. They fucked that motherfucker up.
Yeah.
So in the first Naked Gun movie, the mayor talks about Frank being awarded for just getting his 1,000th drug dealer kill. By the time you see him in part 3 at his retirement party, it's 3,000 drug dealers killed.
Well, and if you hear at one point, I think it's in the 33 and a third, somebody that's just one of the background gags. It's an audible one. There's a cop taking like a call. He's saying like,
I have that written
no,
down
sir,
here.
don't worry about it. Killing a gang, whatever.
Gang member is only a $10 fee in this county.
18. Yeah,
$18
18.
kid.
Yeah.
No,
You can mail it in.
No, ma'am. Killing a gang member is only an $18 fine. Yeah, you can mail it in.
And that's one of my more memorable quotes from the movie. And yeah, you could blame that on the fact that my dad was a cop and I lived in Southern California for a while. It's like, I don't appreciate gangs and gang members. So it's like when I heard that, like killing one's only like an $18 fine, I'm like, that's funny.
When it's weird looking,
I thought that was hilarious.
it's weird looking back on like the events going on around these times, and like just like when LA was just like completely overrun with gangs and just like guns everywhere.
No, it still is. They just don't talk about it as much.
Oh
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they don't really go to jail. They actually get
I
let
heard
out of
about
jail
that.
so they could
I heard about that
continue.
in San Fran. That's one of the reasons my sister and brother-in-law and my nephew left.
Yes, LA County has adopted a catch and release program for criminals.
Most of them are just on the release. They don't really catch
They're
them
like, you know
anymore.
what? That shit works so well in Oregon with their salmon. Let's try it here with the gang members and shit. And they do that with their drunk drivers too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is that just across the nation? Like, anyway,
To be a Californian.
I don't miss that shit at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and they're coming here.
I'm not
Yeah.
fucking
Get
heat. Everything in your guys' fucking land will kill you. The air, the heat, the bugs, the lizards, the snakes, all of it. The
The
people.
tax rate.
Phoenix is a monument to man's arrogance.
Oh yeah, Phoenix. Anyway, so it's right. The retirees, so the drivers, you got that in common with Florida.
Oh yeah.
The 55 plus.
Yeah. Oh God, there's a bunch of us down by you, Jeff.
Yeah, I know.
No, but I don't want to forget it. I have it here on my list. I don't want to keep looping us back. The cameos in the movies. There's some really important ones. So again, of course, Weird Al is the biggest one. So he's most noticeable in the first movie at the very beginning. Frank beats up all these terrorists that we talked about at the beginning, and then flies home.
Yep.
And there's this big media reception, and he just assumes that it's for him. And he starts giving this like really aggro speech because his wife left him. And Ed tells him, Frank, they're not here for you. And he goes, what? Weird Al Yankovic is on the plane, and Weird Al gets off, and they're handing him a bouquet of roses and shit like that. And he's waving to all the crowd.
They love me. They really love me.
And then in the third movie, he's paired with Vanna White at the Oscars as a presenter.
Yep.
So I always remember him from those two. But last night, watching part 2, he had a cameo that he was not playing himself. He was a perp in the police squad office who got in a cop's gun, was, trying to escape. And Frank opens the door and knocks his ass cold.
I did not know that was him. That's why when you guys were telling me, like, or Will had asked, like, is he in all 3 of these? I'm like, I thought he was only in, like, I know I said like part 2, but I was clearly thinking of the airport scene. And I'm like, he was only in part 2 and part 3, right, Kevin? And you were like, nope, he's in all 3. And then when you showed me that picture, I'm like, oh damn, he's the one consistent through this. He might as well have been a recurring character. Maybe he should have been our shoe shine guy. Johnny. Maybe he should have been our Johnny
the Snitch, Al the Snitch.
That would have been great. That would have worked for him too. I don't know nothing about nothing.
Yeah, I mean they did like bribe jokes.
Yeah,
but nothing compared to how good Johnny the Snitch was from Police Squad. Like,
right.
They that was a missed opportunity. Like, I would have gotten rid of Jane's character just to have like 3 minutes of Johnny in there.
Well, they did have that one guy. I forget which one it was in, but they traded the 20 back and forth. Like, I don't know nothing about nothing. Well, here's your 20. Well, no, you give me the 20. No, I'll give you the 20. And they kept just going back and forth. I actually found that pretty funny, even though you learn almost basically nothing.
Yeah, that's at the docks, right?
Yeah.
Where Frank gets his 20 back because the guy's like, what do you want to know for, copper? He's like, well, why should I tell you?
Well, if you can loan me the 20, I can let you know.
But then, so like I said, we've got Robert Goulet, who was one of the original guest actors that were part of the executions on Police Squad.
Yeah.
Florence Henderson returns. She was another executed from Police Squad.
Yeah.
Let's see, who else was there?
But she totally deserved it.
Just because.
Well, no, that's the line in the third one when she wins the Oscar or whatever it was. But Florence Henderson totally earned it.
She totally earned it. Where is it? I had them all written down, and I'm like, oh gosh, I feel like so prepared now. Florence Henderson, Robert Goulet, Weird Al Yankovic, not Pia Zadora. Damn it, there was somebody else in there that was in Police Squad. I can't remember who the fuck it was. Not Dick Miller, unfortunately. I don't know. We'll have to let that one go. But yeah, there was a lot of returning cameos, but the third movie was like almost like watching Sharknado. There was a lot of good celebrity cameos in there, whether or not they'd been in Police Squad previously. They were fun cameos, like Weird Al, Pia Zadora, Vanna White, Mary Lou Retton.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like the Oscars scene was truly fantastic for cameos and bits. They did a lot of good bits in there with the movie clips.
Oh yeah, they did. Like the whole made up movies that they were nominating and going through throughout the whole thing, like Sawdust and Mildew.
Yeah, set to the background of the Holocaust. But it was always one woman's journey through something like gum disease set against the backdrop of, Argentina's military coup.
I'm trying to remember the Shannon Doherty one of, and I'm like, oh god, that just had me dying.
Was that the anorexia one?
Yeah.
Oh shit. My favorite though, and this is why I pinged you guys earlier. It's like it was my favorite part from part 3. And it might be my favorite part from maybe the whole trilogy because it gets stuck in my head, was the musical Mother, which was the musical Mother Teresa story.
Oh my god, yes.
It was the cruelest shit I have ever seen.
I just watched with like my mouth open, like, okay.
She's beating the shit out of all these hungry kids and throwing food around, wasting it, and singing, "Food, I love food, and I'm really in the mood for some corn dogs and poo-poo platter." That's been stuck in my head since I was a kid.
Yep.
I almost peed watching it today.
So the second one is the one with Robert Goulet as the ultimate bad guy, right?
Yes.
And then he has the hitman guy going around, and there's like a proxy. Oh, is that the one with the scientist in the wheelchair?
Yeah.
Yes. And the hitman's name was Savage. Which I'm like, isn't that? Oh, I get it. Ooh, yeah.
Snap it to a Slim Jim.
Yeah. And my wife's like, Savage. I'm like, it's Savage, baby.
Yeah.
How so? Oh. No, he was great. And then Uncle Vernon, I can't remember his name. Uncle Vernon from fucking Harry Potter plays Professor Meinheimer,
Yes.
the scientist that Bush is putting his ultimate faith in as a report of energy sources. And everybody knows that he's going to start pushing green energy, like fluorescent light bulbs, solar panels, shit like that.
And fluorescent lights.
Yeah. And Robert Goulet is heading up again the Legion of Doom, but it's all like big oil, textiles and shit like that, nuclear power. And they get an actor to replace Professor Meinheimer to start telling Bush, oh no, we need to keep investing in nuclear energy and oil and fossil fuels. And it was just, he was delightful. He was funny as shit. The best thing he did though wasn't so much any lines. It was when Frank tells people, because he doesn't realize that he's actually holding Professor Meinheimer when he does the whole Scooby-Doo who done it.
Right.
Instead of pulling off his mask, he pulls off his pants.
And he tries to shine it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he goes, the real Professor Meinheimer has a birthmark of Whistler's mother on his right butt cheek.
Then he gets the sandpaper and the angle grinder and anything he can do to try to get it off. It's fake.
Yeah. And the actor's face is just like like he's getting his ass beat.
Give him credit. They put all that effort into it. Like all the actors, whether they like the movie or the role or whatever, they all committed to it.
I don't know that there was anybody that walked away unhappy being in any of the movies.
I thought I heard somewhere, and could be wrong, is that George Kennedy didn't actually like the first movie, but then why did he come back for the next two?
Really?
I could be wrong, but I thought I saw somewhere that he wasn't like the biggest fan of the first one for some reason. I'll have to look that up. That's just something I saw, but you're talking about the scientist. That just made me think of like when he was doing his sales pitch after all of that, everybody's gone, they come back and everybody's like asleep. And then they had him like read this tawdry little novel passage to wake everybody up. And I just couldn't stop laughing.
And he gets fascinated by the novel too as he's reading. He's like, chapter.
Yeah, he started speed reading the thing. Like, ooh, what happens next?
He grabs her ample bosom.
And everybody's like,
She
hey,
bounced-
what's up?
She was bouncing boobily down the stairs all breastly.
No, I think as far as like pound for pound jokes, the second one might be my favorite of the whole series.
I think, yeah, beginning to end, I think that's where the jokes deliver the best.
Yeah, I maintain that Fred Ward is the most classic of all their villains.
Yeah.
But Robert Goulet is the classiest of the villains. But again, like we talked about, the first two movies had James Bond villains.
Yeah.
The third movie had a police squad villain.
Yeah.
But Goulet was just fucking right on. And that had the best kill out of the whole series as far as the bad guys. Like at the beginning of the movie, Frank accidentally breaks the walls and gates to the Washington, D.C. Zoo. And all these animals come fucking running out and escaping.
Yep.
And the mayor yells at him later, going, "Do you understand or realize that because of you, this city is now overrun with baboons?" And Frank looks all offended. He's like, "Well, isn't that the fault of the voters?"
Yeah, I appreciated that joke.
Speaking of that, did you notice that there are a number of jokes making fun of the Democrats in the first two movies for not having a good candidate, and a number of other political jokes, like with George Bush and stuff? And then in the third one, which was in '94, I'm seeing here, all that they did political wise really was just Clinton going down the stairs in that dream of
The opening
Drebin's.
dream.
Yeah.
With the
the Elliot
Pope,
Ness.
the president, oh my God, it's the maniac postal workers, and
Well,
the
there was
baby
only so
characters.
much to complain about, really, during the Clinton administration. Like, without being a biased GOP or Democrat, whatever.
Yeah.
Like my friends' family, like straight up, like packed up their house and moved to Canada when Clinton was inaugurated.
Yeah.
But no, I think that joke was a stem from the '88 election, where the Democratic Party had it nominated Dukakis.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And like, it just was not a good candidate whatsoever. So by default, Bush won.
Yeah.
So fast forward 20 years later, we've got GW running again, and there was no good fucking Democrat to run against him. They got John Kerry. So it's like, we've already seen this movie.
Hey, you mean the walking corpse?
No, that was Strom Thurmond. No,
That was more of a blob, and he didn't really walk at the end, did he? I thought he was in like a wheelchair,
Yeah, that's right. He
like
was
a
in
little
Professor
racist
X.
wheelchair.
Yeah, it had the General Lee fucking on it, and
Dun, 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 dun.
when Senate came into session, yeah, it'd start playing fucking Whistle Dixie or whatever. The House will now, anyway.
You were talking about, you thought the second one had the
I'm
best
sorry, the
death.
second movie.
I was going to say the third one, because they shoot Fred Ward literally into the plane and takes out Pap Schmear at the same time, who is a carryover from the second movie.
Correct.
And so they took out two villains with one bomb.
Oh, is that where he came from?
Wait, was Pap Schmear in the second movie or the first one? I remember him from the first one.
Maybe it was the first one. Yeah.
Ludwig Kahn
Yeah.
was trying to sell him the master plan for the Manchurian candidate.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because that's how he was going to assassinate the queen, was by having a Manchurian candidate be hypnotized into doing it, which of course turns out to be Reggie Jackson.
Which I saw that and I completely forgot about that.
Oh, I lost my shit. I'm like, yeah, it's Reggie.
Yeah, Amy looked over at me and she's like, "What are you going on about?" I'm like, "Oh, that's Reggie Jackson. That's like, he retired like a year before."
Yeah, like, it just happens to be one of the best baseball players of all time. It's just nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, when I was a kid and I saw this, I had no idea who he was, so I was kind of like, what the fuck is this? Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm 8 years old. I have no idea. 7. I have no idea who this guy is.
He came back for another Zucker film, for a very short cameo. Basketball.
Oh.
At the very end of Basketball.
I don't remember.
Trey has Reggie's baseball.
Yeah.
That he caught for that big home run record that he smashed.
Right.
And when Reggie comes to talk to him at the end, he's like, "Oh, by the way, Coop," and he turns around and goes, "I don't have your fucking ball, okay?" Which, for those of you at home, if you have not seen Basketball, another one of the great Zucker films that's probably the most underrated because it was overshadowed by the creators of South Park.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was a Zucker film.
Yes.
I only ever knew it as a South Park film.
That's what I thought it was for the longest time too.
Yeah, it was a Zucker film, and it was a good marriage of the two comedies. Like, I think it just happened to star Matt and Trey.
Yeah.
Did Matt and Trey make Orgasmo, or was that a Zucker?
No, that was their movie, I think, and they kept, I can't remember his name, the actor that plays Choder Boy or Squeak. Well, Choder Boy and Squeak, he carries over with them from the two movies.
Never saw that one.
Really, Orgasmo is pretty fantastic. Like
I will put it down.
it sounds dirtier than it is, and it is dirtier than it sounds. It's hard to explain Orgasmo.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
it's a devout Mormon in the porn industry, slowly accepting sin as an everyday thing.
And
All right.
him and his betrothed or his wife or whatever, and that whole situation too.
Oh yeah, their phone conversations end with Jesus and I love you very much, Joe. Jesus and I love you too. Bye-bye.
I will need to check that one out then.
Yeah, Orgasmo is pretty great.
All right.
And that's where you get Sancho from.
Ah.
Just remember that name.
You think this would ever get rebooted, remade? I know we kind of talked about this in the Police Squad TV show episode, but do you think it'd be good if this came back, or do you think it was okay ending at part 3?
No. It's male whore. No other male whores? You guys are both drinking. Fuck you guys.
I'm not muted.
I
though.
should be taking a picture.
I'm drinking after coughing my ass off.
I'm
There's
like-
a difference.
I'm sitting here like, did my joke not land? Fuck. At least I get one of the two of them. And they're both sitting there fucking drinking shit. And it's like,
No, you're
Dickheads.
fine.
leaving me hanging and whatever.
That was a good one.
Oh, hanging like Anna Nicole Smith. His son was
Which
I
again,
forgot.
Big Floppy Donkey Dick is his ripoff from South Park. So
I forgot how derpy her voice sounded.
yeah, but wasn't she good at it though?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
she had
really,
the Southern Belle thing.
her acting was good in this. Like,
Yeah, she didn't seem uncomfortable like at all.
no, it wasn't forced like you'd see in a porno movie with like bad acting and shit like that. Like she was really portraying the ditzy bad girl really well. Like I liked it.
It was a good role for her. It suited her personality. Like she was a ditzy white blonde girl from Texas. Good
Yeah.
old country gal with some big assets.
And legs that continue to go up and up and up for about 4 sets of knees.
I was gonna say there's quite a few sets of knees with that.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
That was a
The
great
knees, if you please.
Knees, if you please. But again, yeah, I don't remember if Pap Schmear was in all 3. That would be cool if he was. But yeah, I did catch today that Pap Schmear was in part 3.
Yeah.
I liked him finally dying. That was pretty epic
Yeah.
too. It was a little bit like Ghoulies too.
Yeah, with the head through the toilet. Rocco?
Pap Schmidt. But Robert Goulet's death, going back to that was the most, I think that was the best death because it was the most random.
Oh my god, it was.
Like when you see Ricardo Montalban die, you know, his death was pretty played out. Like he falls, he gets run over by the steamroller and then marched across by the USC marching
Yep.
band.
Well, first it's a truck, then comes the steamroller.
Oh, that's right. And then the USC marching band, which is hard not to scream, Tusk!
Well, and I automatically look at that and I
It's not-
think like that's where Austin Powers got the steamroller scene from, that they wanted the
Yeah.
milk from.
Yes, very much so.
Speaking of Tusk, this is not a werewolf movie sequence, so
Warwolf.
Ugh,
you don't
Tusk.
get to sing it in the credits. Tusk.
Oh, the crazy credits were pretty good through the movies. If you paid attention to any of the credits through the end, some of them would say like, you know, grip, and then it would give the definition of what a grip did. And then
Yes.
like I wrote
Damn, I
one
missed that.
down here. Crazy credits. It said cable person, and then it said cable installation, and then it would say between 8 to 5.
Between 8 to 5.
So, I mean, they all had something funny like that throughout their credits. So if you stayed and you actually read the credits, they had like little Easter eggs or whatever throughout.
I did not do that, and I probably should have, because I do remember that, yes, they do have a bunch of little one-liners in there spread out.
Yeah.
But no, I did not watch the credits on this last run.
Yeah, I actually, on the first one, we just let the credits just run because I usually watch them anyway, because I didn't remember like anybody who was in this. So I'm like, I wonder if I could just watch the credits and be like, oh, that was that person. That was that person, instead of using my phone like everybody else these days. I got a kick out of it. I love stuff like that when they do little zingers in that.
Yeah, it's fun. As a movie nerd, that's like a little special thing for you. I mean, I know they call them Easter eggs for a reason,
Right.
but it's a nice little tidbit. Fudge, what was I gonna say? There was another one. Wasn't the credits? It was akin to that. Oh, the intro in regards to the credits. My kids, anytime a movie is over, just like go nuts. Like they're this new generation that don't understand to wait to turn something else on.
Oh, okay.
or to sit through the credits and shit like that. My kids have zero patience whatsoever. So when part 3 ends today, you hear Ira Newman's score, which is one of the most fabulous fucking movie scores ever. Yeah, I have the theme to Police Squad on my fucking phone on all my music platforms. I love it. But my youngest daughter got fucking aggro when my son tried to change it today. she was listening to the song and just really digging it.
That's good.
Yeah. So at least I'm able to corrupt my children in some fun ways. I'm giving her the music bug for jazz.
Jazz hands.
That seems about the only fun part of being a parent is just getting to like corrupt them.
My big brother figure instilled that to me. Like his nephews were like his pride and joy. Like that was his people to give brain damage to and corrupt before he met me. And I kind of like to raise my kids the same way. It's like my son with his autism, he's infatuated with bridges and shit like that. And everyone's like, oh, maybe he'll be an architect when he grows up. Get him involved with this and show him that. Like he's really into the Golden Gate Bridge and the bridges in New York and shit like that. Like you never hear the end of it. But I'm like, what if we could do that too? But what if we also show him Godzilla, where he swims underneath the Golden Gate Bridge and then rocks the fuck out of San Francisco and a butt ton of monsters?
Yep.
Why would you do that? Because Smiths are destroyers, not creationists. Not a single one of us has ever been useful for anything other than destroying shit.
A harbinger of
bring in the
doom.
kaiju. So that's how I got my son into kaiju.
Hey, there you go. You got to start somewhere.
Honestly, like I hope my son does become an architect or some shit like that, so he's successful throughout life and can sustain himself. But he needed monsters and shit like that in his life. He was well past due.
Good.
Which now we'll talk about it soon. But now I have him playing the Evil Dead video game with me.
Oh, there you go, my man. Yep. A little Easter egg ourselves.
Yeah, I'm gonna get into playing it with Liz. She picked it up just recently.
Good.
Or she picked it up a while back, but we forgot about it, and so now we're gonna play it.
Cool.
We'll have a squad.
Kind of just looking forward to stuff.
Well, that would make, let's see, 3 of us,
That makes
right? That's
5.
4. We got one more person. We could do private matches so we can figure things out otherwise, or just have fun just killing each other.
That'll help me ease into fucking playing as the demon, because I haven't done that
I've
yet.
done it a couple of times. It's definitely a learning curve. I very much suck at it, but I've possessed 10 survivors, so I kind of gotten that trophy. But
What's funny is I usually play as the Exorcist survivor. So like demons fucking hate me.
oh yeah.
Hate me because they'll fucking possess one of the team, and I just come running in out of nowhere like, get out of here with that shit, Exorcise.
I've seen people complaining about that on the Facebook groups. Like, we hate the Exorcists. That's ridiculous. It's like, whatever.
Oh fuck yeah. And I have it spec to fucking do it more often than not.
You're right.
Like if I'm gonna get my ass kicked, you're having an aneurysm first.
Yeah. Good policy.
Never go down quietly.
No, never
Never.
without a fight.
Never.
All right, guys, this was The Naked Gun. Any last thoughts before we get to some social media about the franchise as a whole?
You know what? I think there was a question that we kind of wanted to talk about. We had it written down that I think was kind of worth talking about. The third movie was ultimately the end of the line.
Oh, yeah.
Where you'd said, was that a swan song for the franchise, or did the franchise like Austin Powers just deserve to get iced?
Austin Powers deserved to get iced.
The only great part of Austin Powers 3 was fucking Nathan Lane, because I can't say anything bad about
Oh,
Nathan Lane.
well, yeah.
his fucking pantomiming Beyonce's fucking anyway, yeah. So Naked Gun good, Austin Powers bad. The Austin Powers movies, yeah, I agree, needed to get iced. But what do you guys think about the Naked Gun franchise? Was 3 enough? Do you have more of an appetite for more?
I don't see how they could do anything more these days at all, like without completely compromising the humor.
Well,
if they could reinvent the style if they could apply the same style of humor to more modern day settings, I think they could probably figure out a way to make it funny even within the constraints of modern social and political and everything. I don't know though. It's hard to say because a lot of what they did was very much no stuff these days.
Those were easy jokes to make.
Oh yeah.
I think a lot of your good comedians, Carlin pretty much said it best before he passed, and Frank says it all the time, Frank Conniff, that a good comedian isn't going to sit there and tell you that cancel culture is killing comedy. A smart comedian is going to find another way to make you laugh without telling lazy, used, outdated jokes.
Exactly. And that's why I think they could do it, because like you said, a lot of those jokes that were part of the movie, yeah, they could be redone.
Yeah.
And they could be reimagined.
Yeah, you just need a platform that's willing to give somebody that opportunity to do that and not be completely afraid of it, you know?
The racism wasn't the part that necessarily made it funny so much. I don't know.
Like OJ is like the perfect example of what we like to talk about with certain actors, performers. I'm not sure what the right word would be because OJ is not an actor. Where it's like you hate the person for their deeds, but you enjoyed what they did in a certain thing. Like I enjoyed the jokes that they wrote for Nordberg.
Yeah.
Like Nordberg was great in the second movie. They wrote him a lot of funnier parts, kind of like you would have seen for the Nordberg character in the TV series. The first one, they didn't have him a whole lot because I'm sure OJ cost more money. And then the third one, they used him very little, but where they used him was pretty goddamn funny.
Oh.
You know, the scene where the baby strollers are falling down the steps and he catches them and he goes to do a fucking football spike and you hear, "Give me my baby!"
Exactly.
What are you doing?
That was precious shit.
I liked how they played off of him as like a kind of derpy character.
Yes.
Like at the end where he's starting to say something and
It goes, "The phone's for you."
Exactly.
No, that was great.
And they did that a lot in the third movie, it seemed, or when he was on screen, I guess, is when they did that a lot.
I feel like a hypocrite when I say that because we were just talking about the Flash movie and Ezra Miller, and like I fucking hate him. I don't want to see him as the Flash or it, whatever it is. Anyway.
Like Amber Heard being in Aquaman, it bothers me.
Dude, you know what? Fish poop in their bowl. It's okay. She's okay for that.
Because you just got heard.
You will never see these eyes again.
Oh, thank Christ. I mean, can we just say, like, just like with OJ did it, Amber Heard pooped the bed, and that's just what there is. She's still going to have her career. Kids at home that like Amber Heard, the German Scheisse films, those offers are going to keep on rolling in, and those are lucrative. But as far as Hollywood, I'm sorry. Everyone at home's going, Scheisse film?
Do not Google that unless you are really
dog.
ready to see what that's about.
Kevin, it's a dog. It was a dog, Kevin. Oh, it's just a dog.
Oh, God.
You didn't do it.
Speaking of dog, the nuclear power commercial from part 2. Where they're praising nuclear energy and shit like that. And it's supposed to be like this wholesome family commercial in their backyard. And the family dog jumps up on the fucking
With 2 tails.
And he's got 2 tails wagging in different directions.
Yep.
That was great. That reminded me of fucking Blinky the fish from the
I was going to
Simpsons.
say that reminded me of the Simpsons, like straight up.
But anyway, as far as my closing thoughts on, was this a swan song or did it deserve to be iced? I wouldn't say that it deserved to be iced because it wasn't getting old necessarily. Well, yeah, it was. They were running out of things to do.
Yeah.
And we talked about that with the first series or the last episode. They were happy and relieved that it got canceled because they were running out of ideas after the 6 episodes. So come 3 movies, they were able to tell a lot of the jokes they'd wanted to tell and jokes that they'd come up with since then. But I think having the trilogy, they pretty much came full circle in a lot of ways. They limited themselves as far as what they could do with their bad guys, because Frank, being a cop, can only go after so many types of people, or the villains can only be so many types of people. But they escalated that. And then when they gave him a villain that he was supposed to be fighting, it was lackluster for everybody. And then worst of all, they gave him a relationship, and that had probably gone past its evolution of what it needed to be.
Yeah, it was really hard to get engaged in any of that storyline, the Thelma and Louise storyline. It was...
Yes, because they were very anti-man preachy in that. And I know that was the joke.
Oh, that wasn't my part. It was just like bland. It was just like boring.
Yes, there was that too.
And if you'd never seen Thelma and Louise, you wouldn't get the joke anyway.
Which I haven't, fortunately.
I've seen
but
enough.
I've seen the poster.
I've heard of it. That's about it.
Where it's kind of meta watching it now, where the lady says, "Jane, you just killed a man. You just became every woman's hero." And I'm like, oh shit. And like, wasn't there just a horror movie that just came out last month called Men?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
wow.
We've come to this in the last 25 years. We are now the shit villains. Yeah, I think it was a nice swan song. I think they pulled the Shakespeare method and ducked out while the party was still good. But they did what they wanted to accomplish and shot themselves in the foot by going Hollywood all at the same time.
Yeah, I'd pretty much agree with you on that. I don't think it deserved to get iced, but I think it hit its natural stopping point with the third one. It was feeling a little long in the tooth at that third one. I wasn't digging Priscilla in the third one, like for the most part. I mean, I liked that she had an actual story through the first 2. This third one felt like, well, we got to give her something to do. So, hey, this is what we're doing. It's like, oh, okay.
And it was an anxiety story. I mean, Frank's retirement anxiety was kind of funny.
Hilarious,
yeah. The supermarket scene, we'll talk about that when we get to social, was really relatable if you're in midlife area, or man of a certain age, if you will. The only thing I really found somewhat funny about her character's presence is Frank lying about going undercover and trying to like insist that he's having an affair. So she's not mad that he's working with the cops again.
She's like, I know you're working with them. You're not having an affair.
Yeah, but I mean, she was so anti-police squad that you got tired of Scylla really quick.
There's no purpose. Like, you could have thrown any character in there without any of the real backstory behind her. Just could have been some woman that Frank married between 2 and 3, and it could have told the same exact story.
Or just like with the beginning of the first Naked Gun. Oh, my wife ran out and left me.
Exactly. It could have been Priscilla took off again because she'd already taken off once. And it could have been a completely different character, completely different actress.
Or just don't do the romance story at all.
Which is really what they should have done. But of course, Hollywood has that ideology of, we need women to come to the theater too. Add a romance. That's what women want to see.
Yeah, because that's the only thing they'll want to see.
Shirtless
right.
men.
Completely wrong.
Shirtless men.
Well, I mean, we like nice tits. I mean, can't fault them for eye candy.
Well, they had some body double for Frank in one of the movies that had big old man titas.
Wasn't that the first one where they had the love scene?
It was either that or where they were spoofing Ghost.
It was when they were spoofing Ghost.
Spoofing Ghost, that was pretty funny.
Better than Ghost.
That's what I said when we were watching. I'm like, this is 10 times better than that movie.
Which is funny because Scary Movie 3 just defines, describes, and explains The Ring way better than the fucking Ring did.
That's what I heard. I never watched beyond the first two.
The second one was the only good
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Are you talking about Scary
Yeah.
Movie? Oh no, the Ring. The second Ring was the only good.
Oh,
movie.
I've watched the first Ring, not the second one.
Yeah, I watched the first and black.
They make fun of the Ring pretty well in the third movie. George Carlin plays the architect from The Matrix, who basically explains the whole plot of Scary Movie 3 because there's no plot to Scary Movie 3.
Yeah.
It's just a mishmash of bits and horror films and aliens and stuff like that. But he describes the tape that the girl kills people on as something that was accidentally recorded over when it was Pootie Tang. And so blames the whole thing on fucking Pootie Tang. I'm like, oh man, I like Pootie Tang. Everyone at home's going, who? What?
Pootie Tang.
Other people going, Sadate.
And not just Tang, it's Pootie Tang.
Pootie Tang is a gym. Anyway.
Real quick, Jim, I think the show has had enough of a break between, well, the movies have had enough of a break between 94 to today, but I think there's enough stuff that they could mine to get like the same kind of visual gags, like the sneezing increases breast size, and they could find stuff that would fit in today's society. And I think that they could, but how do you replace Leslie Nielsen though?
See,
that's the problem I just thought of with
We kind of got into that a little bit in the last episode where we were talking about like, well, what could you do with this now? You need an actor who can actually do Leslie Nielsen without being Leslie Nielsen. And we had a couple good ideas with that, but whether they would actually go with that is another question.
See, I thought of one that probably would, because Leslie Nielsen worked as Frank Drebin because, again, he was a serious actor playing a serious cop in a funny movie. So you would need an actor known for being a serious cop or serious action type person who's also able to make fun of themselves or be genuinely sweet and naive. And I might have to go with Liam Neeson on that one.
I would go with that. And wasn't he in one of the Scary Movies?
No, I don't know if he was in that, but he was in Million Ways to Die in the West and was fantastically funny.
That's probably where I'm thinking of him. Yeah, he was hilarious in that.
Yes, like he was, again, the straight-faced bad guy, but it was just so funny all at the same time. Everything happened around him to the point where they stuck a fucking daisy in his bare ass.
And I thought George Clooney.
Yes. Or Don Johnson. No, not Don Johnson.
Sure,
fucking no. The guy that plays Gibbs on NCIS.
Mark Harmon?
Yeah. Mark Harmon. Because Mark Harmon is cool.
That would be a switch for him. All right, guys, do we want to get into some social media?
All right, so looking at social media, we had some responses when we asked people, what were your favorite moments or favorite memories from the Naked Gun franchise? And Jeremy Hall said on Facebook, I love it. I'm swimming in raw sewage. I said, I love it. And really, he's right. Like, you can't give that answer as an opinion without saying it. I love it. Like with that long let's see here. And then Ben Graff from Facebook also said, been thinking about this series a lot lately. It's an absolute classic. Leslie Nielsen is very sorely missed.
Yes, he is.
And that goes back to what we were just saying. Like, it's like a comedy power vacuum. Who could you get to replace Leslie Nielsen as a Frank Drebin? Or as that face of slapstick? I don't know anybody has. And then in our Facebook group, Matt Miller said, the whole I Love LA montage is just an all-time classic.
Yes, it is.
Fuck yes. That scene in the grocery store, like, every husband can get that. Like, you don't want to be there. That's not your normal place. You're really out of your element and you can't find shit.
Right.
And it's always an unwanted adventure to get out.
Or they reorganize the store.
Yes.
That's the devil's work.
And then you need an adult.
I wasn't in it at all.
And then let's see, that's what I had from Facebook today. Jeff, you were on Twitter. What did you get?
Yes, we got a couple from Twitter. One is from Criticality.
Criticality.
Yeah.
Yeah, criticality.
Criticality.
I like that.
I remember me and my mom watching Naked Gun 2.5, which I believe I was about 6 or 7 viewing and seeing the sex shop scene. I asked her, what's the store he's in selling? She would then go on to say they were selling toys. And the worst part is she wasn't exactly wrong.
No, she wasn't. I actually had to take a still from that scene last night that I don't really recall having noticed before. As Savage is running out of the building, there's a sign that says Portuguese butt blaster.
Yep.
And I don't know how many people at home realize this, but I'm actually half Portuguese. I'm half Portuguese and half Irish. And Jonah Ray is half Portuguese. And so I love slinging fart jokes at Jonah. He's such a funny guy and he tells good fart jokes. So when I saw that, I had to take a picture and post it going, well, I know what I'm calling my farts from now on. I'm like tagging Jonah. Buddy?
Yeah.
So yes, Portuguese butt blaster will now be part of my permanent vocabulary.
We'll see if we can get that trending on Twitter.
Portuguese butt blaster. And it was 50% off.
Boom.
It's almost like a certain sale in a certain movie you buy about birds and
Yep. Now we have our buddy Dave who knows all about Birdemic. But I digress. We also heard from Kurt Smith on Twitter. The Naked Gun trilogy is required viewing for anyone who loves comedy. Even the sequels, while lower on the totem pole compared to the first, are still pretty damn funny. Damn right, Kurt. Damn right.
Yeah, all of them are worth seeing. It's a great trilogy.
Yeah, and most trilogies aren't that.
No.
Like they just happen to be a trilogy.
Right. They tend to fall off the cliff.
And it's a movie where even though I was a pretty young kid, like I said, I was like 7 or 8 when I saw it originally in the theater. Like it's one of those movies where you can figure out a lot of the jokes even if you don't know the reference just by inference.
Yes, and the jokes come off funny. Like it's like watching a Mel Brooks movie as a kid,
Yes.
or Cheech and Chong. It's like you may not get it all the way, but it comes off as really funny, and you know you're laughing at something hysterical.
Yeah, like MST3K for me when I was a kid. Like I had no idea who all of these 70s references were.
Right.
And that's one of the things about Naked Gun is there's so many jokes, and Police Squad as well. So many jokes crammed into one small spot that you're going to catch a new joke every different time you watch it. So these have replayability,
Yes, they do.
for lack of a better term.
Definitely. It was just as fun watching him this as it was last time I watched him and time before that.
Well, you can even play these in the background if you're doing stuff, and there's always something you can catch, or just keep on moving, doing your thing, and just watch it as you can.
Yeah.
But I will say this about that. Not when you're doing something really important, because like I will stray away and start laughing my fucking ass off at what's happening.
That's true. That's true.
I'm not a good example. Like I don't multitask well. Like one thing will eventually overpower the other. Like I can't play video games and work.
You can't work and
No, I
work.
used to be able to. No, I really can't. I hate working, and it really distracts me from enjoying
Yep,
work.
me too. And that is Sons and Shadows Cast. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Sons and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Sons and Shadows Cast. We are at sonsandshadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.
So I always say the only good work I do is podcast work.